Welcome to Week in One. I'm Govin Whittles. If you missed the news this week, join us for the next 30 minutes as we bring you a breakdown of the top stories and the best interviews that have made headlines on eNCA over the last 7 days. This week's top stories on Week in One. An emotional mass funeral service for the 21 victims of the Enyobeni tavern tragedy took place in East London. Kelly Khumalo speaks to eNCA's Slindelo Masikane in an exclusive interview. And the body of 6-year-old Khayeletu Magadla has finally been found after falling into an uncovered manhole 3 weeks ago. Anger and despair prevailed as 21 teenagers were laid to rest this week in East London in the Eastern Cape. More than 1,000 people, mostly grieving family and community members, attended the service for the youths who died at the Enyobeni tavern 2 weeks ago. President Cyril Ramaphosa delivered the eulogy, and eNCA's Pulile Jones was there.
President Cyril Ramaphosa has called for the review of the legal drinking age. Ramaphosa, who was speaking during a funeral of the 21 minors who lost their lives during the tragic incident at the Enyobeni tavern in Eastern Cape, says that it's high time Parliament discusses the issue of the legal drinking age and pushes the age restriction from 18 to 21 years old.
A number of people have been sending messages through to me and saying, President, maybe the legal age of alcohol should now be lifted to 21 rather than where it is.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Police, Khele, has called for accountability. Khele says the investigations are currently underway and has not ruled out the possibility of arrests being made soon.
Kunombuzo ukuthi sekuboshwe bani. Ngihlalile nethimba izolo sino National Commission nathi siubuza lo mbuzo. Bathi kunempitha abadala yemthetho yotshwala. Therefore, kunethimba mongameli lamaphoyisa nethimba labashushisi elikhona. The investigation is prosecution driven because masses figure kulowo muntu sifika ukufika sibambe kungaphunyuki.
The family of the 21 minors who lost their lives are hopeful that they will be arrested or be made, and they're now pinning their hopes on the reports which will reveal the outcomes of the investigations. Pule Jones, East London.
To this story now. The 3-week-long search for Khayeletu Magadla is finally over. The 6-year-old's body was discovered in a wastewater treatment pipeline near the Klipspruit West Cemetery. The family says it's grief-stricken, but also relieved now that they have closure. Funeral arrangements will be made once his post-mortem is completed. Linda Kuhle has that story.
The search and recovery mission for Khayeletu Magadla has come to a painful end. The 6-year-old who fell into a manhole 3 weeks ago was finally found on Saturday afternoon and was certified dead. During the search that lasted for about 20 days, emergency management services, police search and rescue teams, and engineering company Delta Scan had to search a 9-kilometer pipeline leading to this splitter chamber. Young Khayeletu's body was eventually found in one of these 3 pipes.
When the team had gone through, it started from the chamber coming to the manhole, and from the manhole going to the sump, and the team could identify him with the clothes that he was wearing, and as well we can say that he is intact. His body is still intact, and we were happy to say that now the family can finally find closure.
Magadla's father has expressed relief that his son's body has finally been found. He recalls how he found Khayeletu when he was called to identify him.
It's a strong man. It's a champion. It's a hero. You know, strong that guy. Because ngimthole aphelele umzimba wakhe izandla yonke into inyawo. Just that amanzi nje amshisile. Because you know amanzi ane acid obviously azomshisa. Because bekahleli lapha more than 21 days.
The father says while the last 3 weeks have been difficult for the family, they have now started to focus on healing and finding closure.
I'm worried because my car first week, second week, and so I was worried to uzo limala. But I'm relieved to uyakhala like uzinika isikhathi sokukhala yabo ngamvumela nami ngamthulisa shushuzela ngaze ngabona ukuthi hayi sesikhalile enough yabo ngisatsho ukuthi inyembezi asisanazo sesijabuliswa nje ukuthi sithole ithambo lethu.
The Magadla family says they are waiting for the post-mortem to be concluded before they can start arranging the 6-year-old Khayaletu Magadla's funeral. Lindo Kuhle Xulu, Dlamini in Soweto.
To Cape Town now, where residents say despite a reprieve from the severity of rolling blackouts, while the rest of the country's on stage 4, they're just as fed up. The price of electricity has gone up 9.5% this month for city customers, and now the fuel price hike is expected to add to food and transport costs. But the DA says it has a plan to deregulate the price of fuel. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
A grim start to the week for cash-strapped consumers after another weekend of load shedding.
Eskom is now controlling our lives. Eskom is saying when you can eat, when you can sleep, when you can do whatever. It's unfair to us because we buy electric. We don't get it for free.
I have a small baby. I have to ask my neighbors for water because I must make milk. And I must iron my clothes and I must wash myself. Now every time I must put on water outside. I mean really now. And there is electric on my box, but it's not even a zero as I told you, it's just blank.
Gas shop owners say they've noticed a slight uptick in the sale of two-plate gas burners. The gas price will be going down by R2.18 a litre on Wednesday.
One of our problem areas today is because of load shedding as well. You find the person that would normally be cooking with electricity, they are also forced to use gas burners now. And so those are the extras. And during this period, high volume period, you find that the demand is actually greater than the actual supply.
As motorists dig even deeper into their pockets to keep their cars on the road, the DA says the law must be amended to curtail the minister's powers to regulate the price of fuel.
So the general fuel levy, we're saying scrap that completely. With regard to the road accident fund levy, what we are proposing is that those road users who have a valid third-party insurance and can prove that should be allowed to claim a tax rebate against their fuel purchases of that R2.18 per litre that the road accident fund levy brings in, to claim that on their tax returns.
The DA says petrol should cost no more than R19 a litre. It will introduce its bill to amend the law to Parliament soon. Lindsay Dentlinger, Cape Town.
Stay tuned to Week in One. Coming up, we'll feature some of the big interviews and the discussions done by our anchors this week. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Govan Whittles. This week's special focus was fixed on South Africa's ongoing and debilitating energy crisis. We asked whether power cuts are here to stay. Experts warn it'll take years to substantially improve Eskom's power generation capacity, and eNCA's Dan Moyane held a robust discussion on the matter.
Eskom currently does not seem to have a solution, or are we being overly impatient as South Africans?
Well, firstly, we're not being impatient, and nobody should be impatient about this. Eskom have failed us abysmally. And so to put it into perspective, let's just cut out what it's not. It's not a load problem. There is no load problem in South Africa. I'm going to say it again. A no load problem at all. The problem is 100% Eskom's problem. And the fundamental problem at Eskom is they do not have the resources to handle even half the work that they currently have. Their breakdowns alone are consuming more resources than they have provided for. And the worst thing is they do repairs, but the repairs break down immediately thereafter or shortly thereafter because they were not done incomplete or they were done in a rush or whatever. That leaves us with maintenance, which is virtually non-existent. And when they do take machines out for maintenance, it's invariably more than double the time than that was supposed to be because they don't have the spares, they don't have the resources, the manpower, etc., etc. I've told them once, I've told them twice, I've told them 1,000 times, I've told the Minister of Finance, I've told everybody who's asked me, tell Eskom to cut out the old power stations and send those resources, those people, to the bigger power stations and focus their attention on that. And that may start solving the problem. But we're 5 years away from it. The bottom line is, Eskom have long gone past a turning point where they're currently going downhill. I predicted this months and months ago, and I told everybody who asked me that we are going to go way beyond load shedding 2. We're now sitting at 6. I can tell you very shortly, they're going to be asked for load shedding at 8. And just so that you know, the reason Eskom are asking for load shedding, they have less than 50% available capacity at any time than they need. So the only solution that they have, and which they're using frequently, is to shut you and I down by means of load shedding. There's the problem. It's destroying the economy. It's destroying the country. We are going downhill. Quite frankly, I say the country is burning.
As part of our energy focus, eNCA anchor Masego Rahlaga spoke to independent energy expert Hilton Trollop about the impact that the fuel price hike will have on motorists and on the economy.
Will we see the petrol price actually decrease at some point soon, or is the war that Russia has imposed on Ukraine just going to force us to have these petrol price increases for a longer time to come?
So this is one of the big historic spikes in the price historically. Also, if you look over the years, the price is very volatile. It ranges between quite big. It's got a big range. It goes from about $20 a barrel to $150 a barrel. And it really is subject to international uncertainties, wars, economic news, disasters, etc. There are other influences, but basically South Africa doesn't influence that. The question, will it come down? Probably. When? We don't know. Might it go up further? Quite possibly. Nobody knows that. But it is historically high. We would be very surprised if it were to stay at this height for years and years. But it could be 6 months or a year, depending on how long this uncertainty in Europe continues, or it could get worse, the uncertainty in Europe and the world.
Adapt or die. That's the word from the National Association of Automobile Manufacturers of South Africa to the manufacturing sector. They say the country needs to start producing and selling more electric vehicles or risk losing out on billions of rands in exports. eNCA anchor Khumalo Mototwane spoke to NAMSA's chief executive, Mike Mabasa.
Why do you think government has been quite slow in catching up with global trends?
It's precisely because the world is moving and it's doing so faster than we are currently moving, as the South African nation. As you know, Khumalo, I think the evolution into electric vehicle is not a new conversation. This conversation has been, in our ecosystem for the longest time. There are markets now, for an example, in Europe, where more than 80% of their vehicle park has already been transformed into new energy vehicles, because those markets have already made decisions to endorse and also embrace the move into these new energy vehicles. And our biggest concern, obviously, South Africa, is that those markets that are moving this fast are the ones that are actually our customers, because we're actually exporting these vehicles into those markets predominantly, because 64% of what we're producing here in South Africa goes into those markets. And those markets have already indicated to us very, very openly, very, very transparently, that in the next 8 years, for an example, in the UK, the United Kingdom has said in the next 8 years, they will no longer be accepting our internal combustion engines because of their obviously stringent, carbon footprint and emission standards that they've put in place. And South Africa obviously has to move very, very quickly if we still want to do business with those markets.
And if we don't, I mean, what's the warning here? If we continue to delay with this automotive policies, what could potentially be the consequences?
Well, it's a simple one. I mean, you either adapt or you die.
Yeah.
And I think, we certainly have, case studies. I mean, if you look at, for an example, Australia, Australia had a very fantastic and a booming automotive manufacturing base. And because the government there moved very, very slowly, also in terms of adapting to the new changes, at the time, Australia today imports all its vehicles, and that manufacturing base has completely wiped off the surface of that economic life in that country.
Stay with us here on Week in One. Coming up, we'll play our exclusive interview with Kelly Khumalo that set tongues wagging across the country. Welcome back to Week in One. I'm Govan Whittles. In 2014, the murder of Bafana Bafana captain Senzo Meyiwa shocked the nation. Years later, the trial of the 5 men accused of killing him has us glued to our screen. His girlfriend and mother of his child, Kelly Khumalo, was in the house with others when Meyiwa was shot. Now, Khumalo has launched the 3rd season of her reality show and sat down with our reporters, Lindelo Masikane, in this exclusive interview.
We're in Rosebank, where Kelly Khumalo is launching the 3rd installment of her reality show. Now, this comes at a time where her name is back in the court of public opinion, now that the trial of Senzo Meyiwa's murder is officially underway. I sat down with Ms. Khumalo and her legal representative. This is what they had to say. Congratulations on your new show. And this 3rd installment, of course, comes at a time where your name is once more in the headlines. Let's just talk about how are you and how have the past 8 years been?
It is quite peculiar how everyone wants to know how I am. However, yes, I've had, things happen to me. And with that being said, I've been great, protected by the powers beyond me. And I'm in good space, and I'm happy that finally we are at the point where the law wants to take a step where this matter is concerned. So I'm excited about that. I can't wait for this to unfold.
In your promo, you say they hate me because they wanted me to die that day. Who is they? And why would they want you dead?
And I've said this to one of the interviewers, and I'll say this to you again. Watch the show.
Tell me how you feel about the justice system in South Africa. Do you feel victimized? Do you feel empowered? Do you feel that it protects victims of violence?
See, we have a problem in our country. And this is not just about Kelly Khumalo as the musician, but this is about an individual in the pits and darkest place of wherever it is, where they lose loved ones and justice is not served. And I once, said something about this in my Instagram page. And to my surprise, I had a lot of people who were saying, Kelly, we support and agree with you because we are some of the South African citizens that have been robbed of justice in this country simply because for some reason the law is not playing the part that is supposed to play. And that's what every South African is going through right now, Slee.
You also say in your promo that there's ups, there's downs that you've been through. What's been the lowest point for you?
I think the lowest point for me is being let down by the law. As a South African citizen, I trust and believe in the law to protect not just me, but my family and also our society. But with what has happened to me, I've had my life threatened. I have my family threatened, not once, but multiple times. And I feel like the law is not coming into place to protect and make me feel that, you know what, it is within my right to have protection, not only for myself, but also for my family.
You found out in your relationship that he was married. Why did you want to continue with it?
I did not continue. He dropped his relationship to be with me.
Your lawyer has also maintained that you want your day in court.
Who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? My daughter's father was murdered, and nobody deserves that. My life has been in danger since day one of the murder, and the people I love have been in danger, and that includes my attorney. So, how would I not want my day in court? Because I believe with everything that if the court or the judge or the public wants to know anything, I'm one of the people that needs to say something. But however, the public does not understand the procedure of the court proceedings. I cannot just get on TV and speak whichever way that I want to, even if I wanted to. However, there's court proceedings that needs to be adhered to.
Kelly, your detractors have been on a social media campaign calling for you to be cancelled, saying that you are profiting off of the death of Tingo's father.
With the allowance of my attorney, can I just say this, Maggie?
No, it referred to it.
So, no, first of all, I was Kelly Khumalo before Senzo Meyiwa. I did not know who Senzo Meyiwa was until a friend of mine, Lucia Mtiane, explained to me who he was. Nobody knew who Senzo Meyiwa was until he was attached to the brand Kelly Khumalo. So, really?
To this now. One of the other stories that drew shock this week on social media was a heated rant by Police Minister Bheki Cele, who was criticized by Action Society's Ian Cameron. Cele was addressing a community meeting of residents of Gugulethu and Nyanga who were complaining about rising violent crime and mass shootings in those areas. eNCA's Nobesuthu Hejana was there.
Gugulethu residents say they're fed up with going to the same imbizos that yield no results. They're appealing to Police Minister Bheki Cele to axe officers that aren't performing. Action Society also did not hold back. It's accusing Cele of politicizing crime in the province.
And I'm tired of the excuses, and I'm tired of you making this a political thing. None of these people tonight, when they see their neighbors being slaughtered on the streets, worry about your nonsense comments about the Constitution and about devolution. They worry about surviving, sir. And I would like to end off with this. I want to graciously invite you to come and patrol without a bodyguard, without a grand car, in normal clothes with this community tonight, to get the sewage on your shoes that they patrol through. You have a problem, Mr. Minister, because you are removed from reality that the rest of us face.
But the minister hit back.
And I'm not going to take any nonsense of somebody who regards me as a garden boy today, because you regard me as a garden boy. You come here, shut up! Shut up! Shut up! I sat here, I listened to you. I sat here, I listened to you talking nonsense. Listen, it's your time to listen. Sit down and listen, young man.
Cele says he's not opposed to working with Western Cape authorities, but his engagement was merely to hear suggestions from community members. Hence, an invite was not extended to the Community Safety and Police Oversight MEC nor the City of Cape Town.
The MEC, the new MEC, Allen, I think we're developing a good working relationships. For instance, he has attended all the MinMax, worked together. We all the meetings that I called, we worked together. Today, this is not the meeting of the minister. It's a meeting of the MP that happens to have an office, his operation office in Nyanga, together with Minister Kungubele. So we invited the constituency rather than the province and the city.
The minister has promised to host an imbizo with other stakeholders, including the Justice Department, to address the rampant crime in the Western Cape. Nobesuthu Ejana, Cape Town.
And that brings this week's edition of Week in One to a close. From myself, Govan Whittles, and the entire Week in One team, have a lekker weekend and see you next time.